As I walked toward my sister's car, the gate clicked shut behind me. Pausing for a moment, I took in a deep breath. The air on this side of the wall felt familiar, yet somehow crisper and more invigorating. Marcy greeted me with a warm hug and asked if there was anything specific I wanted to do or anywhere I wanted to go before heading home. Without hesitation, I expressed a craving for a cold beer. Marcy suggested But's Bar, to which I eagerly agreed. Driving away from the weathered stone walls, memories of what led me to that place came rushing back. It all stemmed from a messy divorce, an event that felt unfathomable on that picturesque July day when Amy walked down the aisle toward me, her father by her side. Amy and I had been inseparable since second grade, and everyone assumed we would eventually marry. Our relationship was the epitome of a storybook romance, destined for a fairy tale ending with a classic happily ever after. We decided to postpone marriage until after college graduation and agreed to wait until we turned 30 to start a family. We wanted to explore and experience life before settling down. However, our relationship wasn't without its bumps. We split up twice, once during 11th grade and again in our sophomore year of college. Amy felt she needed to see what other guys were like. Our high school breakup lasted only 3 weeks. When Amy returned, she admitted her mistake, calling her actions foolish. Meanwhile, I dated 5 guys, and they were all idiots. I realized I had the best thing with Amy and almost ruined it. Between classes and sports, I never considered dating other girls. Both breakups hurt, but when Amy broke it off again in college, I decided to see what else was out there for me. I soon discovered that many girls weren't as committed to waiting until marriage as Amy had been. In just 5 weeks, Bev Holbrook was my first. Nancy Newbert introduced me to new experiences, and Irina Collins showed me different aspects of closeness. Pauline French taught me about mutual pleasure. However, I couldn't shake the thought that Amy might be exploring similar experiences. I knew it was a double standard, but I still wished I'd shared those firsts with her. About 6 weeks after Amy decided to see other guys, I returned from class to find her on our front porch steps. It felt like déjà vu from high school. I'd had the best thing with Amy all along and hadn't realized it. I asked for her forgiveness. I'd loved her for what felt like forever, so forgiving her was natural. We never discussed our time apart. When I tried to be intimate with her, she said she wanted to wait until marriage, and I respected that. I wasn't surprised to learn she wasn't a virgin on our wedding night. I sensed she knew I was aware. I wasn't her first. We both landed good jobs in our respective fields, and the next 4 years went smoothly. I occasionally traveled for work but never for more than 3 days at a time. The day after Amy's 26th birthday, she shared that she was expecting. This caught me off guard as we'd planned to wait until we were 30 to start a family. She explained that medication she took for the flu had interfered with her birth control pills. 9 months later, we welcomed Brian Lewis. Amy returned to work after just 6 weeks. Her workplace had an on-site daycare. She soon expressed a desire for another child, hoping to have them close in age for easier raising. I was fine with it, so when she told me 6 weeks later she was expecting again, I was okay with that too. In her 8th month, she mentioned she felt 2 kids were plenty and asked if I'd mind her getting her tubes tied. I felt it was her decision. If she didn't want to go through another pregnancy, who was I to object? A month later, Susan Marie joined our family. Like with Brian, Amy took only 6 weeks off work before returning, bringing both babies with her. Over the next 6 years, we each earned 2 promotions, and our income was solid. We seemed like the ideal couple, rarely arguing and maintaining an active sex life. We were intimate about 3 times a week, which I understood to be quite good compared to other couples with children who had been married as long as we had. We shared similar interests, enjoyed spending time together, and looked forward to seeing each other after work each day. The facade of our happy, loving home was shattered one July day. I had flown to Denver for a 3-day trip to address our supplier's delivery issues. Upon arrival, I discovered the IRS had seized the company earlier that day due to unpaid payroll taxes. I quickly returned to the airport and boarded the next flight home without notifying Amy. This lack of communication proved fortunate as it led to an unexpected discovery. I arrived home around 5:20 p.m., and Amy hadn't returned from work. Considering making dinner, I opted instead to take Amy and the kids out to eat as. I was in our home office when I heard the garage door opener, indicating Amy's return. By the time I saved my work and exited the computer program, she was entering the house. As I started to open the office door, I caught Amy saying, "Stop that," followed by a man's voice insisting, "You don't really want me to stop, do you? Actually, let's not even wait for the bedroom. I'd like to have you over the back of your couch." "You're incredibly eager, Hal," Amy remarked. He replied, "Yes, and you enjoy it. The couch isn't a bad idea. Should I remove my underwear or just slide them to the side?" "Remove them," he directed, recalling the discomfort from the last time he only moved them aside. I cringed. The conversation momentarily halted before Amy's sounds of satisfaction filled the room, mingled with her familiar moans that hurt me to hear. I grabbed my cell phone, set it to camera mode, and headed towards the living room. I already knew who I'd find there. How could Amy's supervisor at work be involved? I had met him and his wife at various company gatherings like Christmas parties and picnics. Amy had no clue I was back home. I had left my car at the dealership due to a brake recall and had taken a cab home from the airport so they wouldn't expect me. I managed to capture 5 clear photos of them before they noticed me and 3 more as they scrambled apart. As they hastily separated, I pocketed my phone and moved towards him. He read my intentions from my expression, and unfortunately for me, I wasn't blocking his path to the door. Luckily for him, he hadn't fully undressed, he'd only unzipped his pants before starting with Amy. This allowed him to quickly turn and make a dash for the door before I could reach him. I might have caught up, but as I passed Amy, she extended her foot, causing me to stumble. By the time I recovered, he had exited the house, ignoring Amy. I went to the kitchen, retrieved the phone book from its usual spot, and looked up Harold Bartram. As I dialed the number, Amy entered the kitchen, questioning, "What are you doing?" "Calling Janet Bartram to share the news," I replied. Amy quickly unplugged the phone and urged, "Don't do this. It'll just create more problems." I retorted, "Don't you think we already have problems, especially with Hal and Janet? It's fine for Hal to mess with my life, but I have to tread carefully with his. It's not about that we shouldn't hurt Janet, she's innocent in all this," Amy argued. "I disagree," I responded. "She's married to a cheating idiot, and she deserves to know. If she chooses to accept it, that's on her. From now on, I plan to make his life miserable. I'll start by telling Janet and offer to show her the pictures if she wants to see them. Then I'll consult with a lawyer about pursuing him at work. I'm sure your company's policy manual addresses supervisor-subordinate relationships. Lastly, I'll track him down, and when I do, he won't walk away unscathed." "Amy, caution, you shouldn't take those steps, it'll cost you too much," I asked. "How so?" she replied. "You tell Janet, she leaves him, and then I'll kick you out, bringing him into our home with me and our kids. If you sue our company, both Hal and I could lose our jobs. Without a job, I'll make sure you pay hefty alimony and child support in the divorce. And if you resort to violence against him, you'll end up in jail for assault. The best course of action is to move past this and focus on our lives," Amy suggested. "Are you serious? Move on after what I've discovered?" I retorted. Amy countered, "Why not? My relationship with Hal hasn't affected us negatively, we have a good life together. I've been a devoted wife to you, we have a strong relationship, and I genuinely love you," Amy claimed. "You can sleep with him and then claim to love me? How does that work?" I questioned. "It's true. To me, Hal is just about physical satisfaction, great physically engaging but only physically engaging. But finding out you cheated and then hearing you critique my performance. I never said you were lacking in the bedroom. Then why cheat?" I demanded. Amy clarified, "I haven't been unfaithful with anyone other than Hal since we got married. You know what I mean. You're a wonderful guy, husband, and father. You're good in bed, but Hal provides something different that you can't, incredible. I excel as a husband and father, but I'm just satisfactory in the bedroom." "That's enlightening," I said sarcastically. Amy quickly responded, "I didn't mean to imply that our bed life is great, there's nothing lacking on your end. But Hal provides something different that I crave." "Oh really? What's that?" I asked. "Size," Amy admitted. "Hal is well endowed, and that offers a different experience." I retorted, "Size shouldn't be the issue. We've had a wonderful life until now. If I'm okay with you seeking that elsewhere occasionally, we can continue as before. It hasn't injured us. It's been going on for years. We'll be fine." Shaking my head in disbelief, I said, "Amy, you're something else." Yet my curiosity was piqued. You claim this has been going on for years. How many years are we talking about? How did it all begin? Amy admitted it started before Hal, during college when we took a break. I wanted to explore other relationships. One of the first men I got involved with was well endowed, and it was quite exciting. It seems men with larger sizes share their experiences, and this guy shared my enthusiastic response with others. I had relationships with 5 of them, enjoying what they offered before realizing I wanted to be with you. This leads to 2 questions. First, if size mattered so much to you, why didn't you marry one of them? Because they were all self-centered, Amy explained. They believed their size was all that mattered, expecting women to be grateful for the experience. I wanted more than just physical satisfaction, and because I loved you, I left them behind. The second question is, after being with well-endowed men for nearly 6 weeks, why did you insist we wait until marriage to be carnal? I loved you, and I knew it, Amy replied. But I was disenchanted with men overall after those encounters. I wasn't interested in being carnal. It wasn't fair to you, but that's where my head was at the time. Everything was going smoothly until a company Christmas party you missed due to a business trip to Seattle, if I recall correctly. I had a few too many drinks and was feeling mischievous when Hal danced me under the mistletoe and kissed me. I felt his sizable presence pressing against my leg. In my playful state, I channeled Mae West and quipped, "Is that a roll of quarters in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?" Hal, also intoxicated, admitted, it was definitely larger than a roll of quarters. Laughingly, I responded, "That's what they all say." Hal confidently claimed he could prove it. Amused, I challenged him to do so, and he did. We spent the next 2 nights together. We continued our passionate encounters until he met and married Janet, though we still flirted. Our relationship reignited when Janet became pregnant and began declining closeness with him. From then on, we never stopped. Look, it hasn't affected us negatively, Amy insisted. I need to go to my sister's to pick up the kids, I pointed out. So you have your sister covering for you while you cheat on me? Amy clarified, no, she thinks I'm working late. I asked her to watch the kids after school. They went straight from school to her place, and now I need to fetch them once I return. I'll demonstrate that nothing has changed, Amy said as she headed out to her car. Staring at her in disbelief, I realized her actions hadn't injured our relationship simply because I was unaware. Going to prove nothing has changed, I thought. She expected me to accept her after her encounter with Halal? Not a chance. I reconnected the phone and dialed Janet. She was upset by what I shared and wanted to see the photos I had taken. We arranged to meet for lunch the next day. Janet cautioned me not to let Amy know I'd called, fearing she'd inform. How I won't act until I have concrete evidence, then I'll confront him, I resolved. Upstairs, I began moving my belongings to the guest room. While hanging my suits, a troubling thought struck me. Amy had said, he can move in here with me and our kids, implying the children were hers and Hal's. I hadn't caught it at the time, but now it seemed possible. Recalling Amy's admission about her involvement with Hal, I realized my trip to Seattle was roughly a year before she announced her pregnancy with Brian. Could Hal be the father of my children? If that were true, they'd both face my wrath. I had just finished unpacking when Amy returned home with the kids, finding me in the guest room. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Creating some distance between us," I replied. She seemed puzzled. "Why?" I reminded her, "I told you I'd show you nothing has changed. Did you forget what I saw just 2 hours ago? You expect me to accept Hal's leftovers?" "Come on, Amy," I retorted. "It's never bothered you before." "Fine, I'll shower first," she responded. "You're missing the point. I want nothing to do with your affair." "You're overreacting, Rob," she insisted. "I don't love Halal. I love you." "I may engage physically with Hal, but I make love with you," Amy insisted. I countered, "Your words said otherwise when you suggested I leave and let Hal move in. And there wasn't much love in your threats during the divorce talk." "I didn't mean it. I just wanted you to pause before calling Janet," she replied. "Well, I did think it over, Amy, and that's why I moved here. We're adults, Amy. We can discuss this, but I need space," I pleaded. "Nothing has changed. I still love you, just not enough to stop cheating." I left to spend time with the kids, helping them with homework and playing until bedtime. Later, settling into my new room, I heard the shower and reflected on Amy's words. "It's never bothered you before," I thought as I was drifting off to sleep. Amy entered the room, feeling her attempt to embrace me. I sat up abruptly, pushing her away forcefully. She tumbled off the bed. What part of I want nothing to do with your affair don't you understand? Stay away from me, Amy. Rob, I love you. We can find a way through this, Amy pleaded. I replied firmly, it's not possible, Amy. There's no chance. She stood, left the room, and I tried to sleep. The night was restless, leaving me groggy by morning. Amy had prepared breakfast, but I ignored her, grabbed my car keys, and left for breakfast at a local inn before heading to work at 10 o'clock. I called Mike Hooper, a trusted attorney and friend, detailing my situation and asking to discuss divorce. He agreed to meet at Bud's bar at 5:30. I connected my phone to the computer, transferred the photos of Amy and Bartram, printed 3 sets, and placed them in envelopes. By noon, I arrived at Mario's to find Janet already there, rising to greet me. I kissed her cheek, remarking, I wish our meeting was under better circumstances. After some casual conversation and ordering, I recounted the previous day's events. I handed her the envelope with the photos, and she calmly reviewed them, surprising me with her composure. She returned the photos to the envelope, asking, Are you going to divorce her? I replied, after witnessing that, there's no fixing things. Janet said, I might do the same. This isn't his first offense. Due to his size, I forgave him once, but warned him it would be the last. You might not have the chance to kick him out. I'll be on the lookout for him, and when I find him, he won't get off easy. She suggested putting him in the hospital and moving his belongings there. If you do catch him, give him a few kicks for me, she added. I agreed, and we left. My discussion with Mike confirmed my suspicions. In our state's no-fault system, assets would be divided evenly. Amy would get custody, and I'd be responsible for child support. With our incomes being similar, I wouldn't owe alimony or what's termed separate maintenance in our state. Concerned about the children's paternity, Mike advised a DNA test. Handing him 2 sets of photos, I requested legal action against Bartram for alienation of affections and against their workplace for neglecting their policy against relationships between supervisors and subordinates. This could jeopardize Amy's job and increase your financial obligations, Mike warned. I'm aware, I insisted. We covered a few more topics, and he advised against leaving the house and giving Amy control. With kids involved, he suggested trying to coexist until the divorce process clarified and the court issued guidelines. Let the court determine who stays and who goes, but remember, courts here often favor the wife, especially when children are involved. It could be a tough road ahead, Mike cautioned. When I returned home, Amy wasn't pleased. You had to tell Janet, didn't you? We could have worked it out, but you involved her, she complained. She kicked him out because of you, I responded. It's not because of me, Amy. It's because of what you and he did, and I regret that she kicked him out. It'll just make it harder to find him, and when I do, I promise his prized possession won't be functional for a while. That night, while the household slept, I rose at 3 o'clock to swab the cheeks of my children with Q-tips. I left the samples at a nearby lab on my way to work and offered extra payment for expedited testing. Amy's words, just remember that I warned you, Rob, stuck with me.